In filmmaking, there are many principles that, depending on their particular ham-handedness of execution, can make or break any scene. For example, with action films, risk and context can be very important for determining audience engagement, as the viewer is much more likely to pay attention to a fight or a chase if they believe the characters involved could actually get hurt, and that the outcomes of the scene could actually have consequences. That's why the fights in the film Sucker Punch, which are effectively daydreams of the main character and thus have no consequence for either them or the plot, generally come across as rather boring and pointless. It'd be like if in the middle of The Godfather it suddenly cut to a dream sequence in which Michael Corleone imagined himself fighting a legion of Sharkmen alongside John Wayne. Although that would probably still be amazing. Anyway, now to lunge mercilessly from the introductory thicket. As you've probably guessed from the title, one particular principle I've been thinking about recently is that of clarity. In essence, clarity means being clear and unambiguous, which is important for films, as if scenes insist on being overly confusing or incomprehensible, they only serve to distract the audience to prevent them from becoming immersed in the events on screen. There are some rules to filmmaking that help to deal with this, such as the 180-degree rule shown here. Effectively states that when two characters are interacting, be that talking or fighting, a line is drawn between them, with all camera work taking place over one side of that line. Breaking this rule is disorienting, but adhering to it means your audience can build a subconscious framework to understand what is happening. A great example of such wanton rule-breaking backfiring is in the Venice fight scene from the end of Casino Royale, which the internet has adamantly refused to give me footage of, but that was as difficult to follow as a conversation between schizophrenic parrots. Another particularly irksome manner with which filmmakers have taken to confusing the hell out of an audience is using shaky handheld camera vision. Cloverfield is littered with brilliant examples of exactly why this technique should go die in a ditch. When used in action sequences such as these, the camera moves so stupefyingly quickly that it leaves no frame of reference to work out where anyone is, and as a result the screen just becomes a blurry, incomprehensible mess. The otherwise superb Bourne films are also seemingly enamoured with the style of action cinema, as is shown by this fight scene, although an equally annoying part of the camera work is its insistence on getting too close to the action. I mean, God forbid, you step back and actually let me see what's happening. No, instead you'd rather have a scene that more closely resembles two suits in a tumble dryer. Now don't get me wrong, I don't hate all uses of the old handheld. Children of Men made extensive use of it in its action sequences, but unlike the previous examples, they controlled its use really well, so that it serves to make the scene more personal without distracting you from the events on screen. This example comes from near the end of the film, but shows how it can really work to draw you into the terror of traversing a chaotic shell of a city, as society literally tears itself apart around you. It's also a pretty accurate description of Coventry on a Friday night. Even with these facts accounted for, one thing that could still tire films and news falls in the world of design rather than camera work. You see, when it comes to antagonists in films, we seem unconsciously programmed to differentiate them into categories of the villains, the named characters or arch-enemies who pose an actual threat to our heroes, or the goons, your classic fodder enemies who are likely bought wholesale from Acme Industries and who Arnold Schwarzenegger is expected to kill on scales verging on genocide. Now this isn't a problem in and of itself, and some movies like Commando thrive off this framework. It does become an issue, however, when little or no care is given to distinguishing between these two groups. Take that cavalcade of explosive stupidity Transformers Dark of the Moon. The Decepticon designs are so messy and monochromatic that any individual differences are almost impossible to note. This means that when watching fights you're often left wondering whether you're actually supposed to give a damn. When I watched this scene with friends, we all assumed that this was just another inconsequential tussle between the heroes and some generic Decepticon underling. We were all very surprised then to find out they were actually facing off against one of the villain's head lieutenants. As a post-coital concubine said to King Midas, that seems like something you should have brought up earlier. However, the Lord of the Rings films do this really well. In this battle scene at Amon Hen, they use subtle differences in costume, behaviour and screen presence to show a clear distinction between antagonists, so that when the leader turns up, you are instantly sure that A, they are different from the other rabble, and B, they are going to wreck your shit up. If I were to try and form some vague conclusion from the crazed ramblings thus far, it should probably be that films, like all art forms, require their creators to reflect on how their audience will experience them. Doing so means the audience will be able to better enjoy and appreciate the piece and whatever meanings you have imbued within it. Oh, and making scenes so confusing and blurry that they require eldritch optics forged by the mystical artifices of Mars just to tell what the hell is going on is not a step in the right direction. Although, now that I think about it, that last film might just have been in 3D.